Lewis Hamilton didn't hold back in Spain. After crossing the finish line in 6th place, the 7-time world champion called it the worst race I've ever experienced balance-wise. That's not something you'd expect from one of Formula One's greatest drivers, especially in his debut season with Ferrari. But the Spanish Grand Prix left Hamilton frustrated, defeated, and questioning everything about the SF25. It wasn't just a bad race, it was a warning shot that something deeper might be broken in Ferrari's 2024 campaign. The car was twitchy, the strategy was reactive, and the team looked lost. As Charles Leclerc surged to a surprise podium, Hamilton was left going backwards, not just in track position, but in momentum and morale. This wasn't the kind of race that gets shrugged off. It raised real concerns about Ferrari's development, leadership, and Hamilton's future in red. Heading into the Spanish Grand Prix, Lewis Hamilton had reasons to be hopeful. He had outqualified Charles Leclerc, securing 5th place on the starting grid, while his teammate lined up in 7th. It was a small but significant win in their internal rivalry. When the lights went out, Hamilton had one of his strongest starts of the season, immediately overtaking George Russell's Mercedes into Turn 1. Leclerc followed him through in textbook fashion, and for a brief moment, Ferrari looked poised to mount a serious challenge at the front. But within a few laps, it became obvious that something was wrong. Lando Norris's McLaren, running in 3rd, began pulling away with ease. Hamilton couldn't respond. He wasn't just losing time, he was visibly struggling to keep the car stable through corners, especially in the medium-speed turns that dominate the Circuit de Barcelona-Catalunya. Behind him, Leclerc was growing restless, clearly faster and boxed in by his own teammate. By lap 9, the radio message came, "Swap positions." Ferrari made the call early, and Hamilton, without protest, moved aside. That moment marked a shift, not just in the race, but in the team dynamic. Leclerc, once the underdog in this pairing, was now leading the charge. Hamilton, meanwhile, began slipping further back. The fact that Ferrari prioritized Leclerc so early spoke volumes. They weren't holding out hope that Hamilton could recover. They saw where the pace was, and it wasn't in the number 44 car. What started as a promising launch quickly turned into a slow, painful unraveling of Hamilton's race and his standing inside the team. If getting overtaken by his teammate was a bitter pill to swallow, what followed was pure humiliation. As the laps ticked by, Hamilton's pace dropped off a cliff. The car refused to cooperate. Whether it was corner entry, throttle response, or straight-line balance, nothing felt right. Then came the moment no Ferrari fan could have imagined. Hamilton was passed by the Sauber of Nico Hülkenberg. That's not just rare, it's unacceptable by Ferrari's standards. Sauber has spent most of the season fighting at the back of the grid, often struggling to escape Q1. Yet here they were, overtaking a Ferrari on pure race pace in the closing stages of a Grand Prix. It wasn't due to tire degradation or mechanical failure, it was just raw, painful performance disparity. Even though Hamilton was eventually bumped up to 6th place after Max Verstappen received a 10-second penalty, that position came as a technicality. It did nothing to soften the blow. The real sting was being outclassed by drivers and machinery that should have been nowhere near a Ferrari. That single moment, the red car being passed by a midfield backmarker, was symbolic of how far things had fallen. For Hamilton, it was a public embarrassment. For Ferrari, it was an indictment of their development, setup choices, and overall direction. And it left everyone wondering, if the car is really this far off the pace, what hope is there for a recovery this season? As Hamilton crossed the line and the team began debriefing, it was clear that this wasn't just a rough day, it was a disaster. The frustration couldn't be contained. Over the team radio, Hamilton delivered a message that stunned even his closest engineers. "I believe we've got something wrong with this car, mate. It's the worst it's ever been." That wasn't a heated outburst. It was pure resignation. This is a driver who has piloted some of the most dominant machinery in F1 history, and who has battled through tough weekends before. But this was different. The SF-25 didn't just lack pace, it felt fundamentally flawed. The rear end was unpredictable, the balance was off, and the handling seemed to deteriorate over the course of the race rather than improve. The race wasn't about a single mistake or a setup issue. It was a declaration that the car, in its current form, wasn't fit to race. And Hamilton wasn't speaking out of anger. He was speaking from exhaustion. The language he used was important. It wasn't, "We had a bad day." It was, "This is the worst it's ever been." That kind of statement has ripple effects. It affects morale, it affects the team's confidence, and most importantly, it puts pressure on the engineers and strategists to explain how things went so wrong. When a driver like Hamilton says the car feels undrivable, people listen. And in this case, Ferrari had no immediate answers. After the race, Hamilton didn't rush to the paddock or dive into post-race interviews with his usual energy. Instead, he moved through the press pen like a shadow, quiet, detached, and visibly upset. When asked what went wrong with the car, his answer was as raw as it was revealing. "I have no idea why it was so bad.